Digital cinematography is something that I didn't really realize when I was in high school that I really wanted to get into. I mean, I had always experimented in terms of editing and even some writing, but I had never realized that I could realistically do it for a job. Like, I always thought, oh no, it's not something you're ever going to get to do. Only certain people get to do that. And it never entered my mind that it could definitely be a possibility. And I actually ended up doing a different program in terms of college. And I completed the degree, but before I even finished that degree, I was like, I'm not really interested in this. This is not where my passion is. And at the time, I had been working on something with a friend of mine, and I realized, this is what I've been doing for so many years that I really need to find out if there's a way that I can make this into a career. And the fact that Full Sail offers an online program, it's completely amazing. It's out of this world. I mean, it's almost like everything's falling into place. It's really hard for me to pick just one aspect of cinematography that I want to focus on, especially now that I'm actually going to school for it and I'm learning so much about it. I mean, ever since middle school, I've absolutely loved writing, and it's just one of those things where I've always seen myself doing it, but at the same time, I would love to be able to direct something. I mean, I see a lot of directors nowadays, they write and direct a lot of their own things all at once, and it looks very nerve wracking, but at the same time, it really just looks like something that I could see myself doing. Um, I, I think what really piqued my interest was when my grandmother got me hooked on CSI when I was 13. It actually got to the point where I was so, I don't want to say obsessed with it, but kids at school made fun of me because I really liked CSI that much. And it's one of those things where I've always kind of liked that genre ever since. And I could have always seen myself writing something like that, and I really hope to write something like that one day. But what really got me going was, hey, I wish I could write my own episode of CSI and show it to everybody. And then I discovered fan fiction, which is obviously not the same as writing an episode of a TV show, but to an eighth grader, it's kind of close. And I wrote my first one at the end of eighth grade. It was terrible. I still have it, and I will probably never show it to anybody. But it's one of those things where it was that much of a spark that got me interested. And ever since then, I've always been throwing out ideas, and even if I can't write for one of the many crime shows that I've always loved, I could always create my own one day. And that's a total possibility to me now, whereas, you know, 8, 10 years ago, I didn't even think that was possible. I think one of my favorite things so far in the program, and it's really hard to pick just one, um, I think my favorite part has been learning how to write in script format. It's something that I've always wanted to try, and I had actually worked on a project with a friend of mine where we were, writing our own parody of a TV show that we used to watch, and looking at that old paperwork now, and it's just like, oh my god, we were completely wrong when we were doing this, but it's something that we can laugh at now. And I don't know, it's really, like I said, it's really hard to pick just one thing, but script writing and storyboarding, everything. I think the Celtics program is probably my new favorite thing. I mean, it's just one of those things where it's just all so amazing, and it's almost overwhelming, but it's pretty awesome at the same time. As with trying to pick a favorite thing, it's pretty much equally as hard to pick a least favorite thing about this program. I mean, I'm learning so much and I'm loving every minute of it. I mean, it's so hard to pick something that I don't like. If I absolutely had to, I would say lighting. I mean, I don't hate it, but I kind of have a love-hate relationship with lighting. I love experimenting with my lights and trying to set up different moods through my lighting, but at the same time, it's so nerve-wracking because especially if I'm my own subject, I'll sit down and I'll be like, wait a minute, I have to move this light over half an inch, and then I have to move the other light over 2 inches the other direction, and then I have to sit down and try it all over again. It's pretty frustrating, but at the same time, it's amazing to be learning as much as I am. I mean, I'm loving all of it. Once I complete my digital cinematography degree, I will definitely look into furthering my education, especially online. I've always weighed the pros and cons of online versus campus learning, and personally, I've always kind of really liked the online versus the campus learning. As someone who has experienced both campus education and online education, I mean, there are a lot of pros and cons to either one, but I definitely prefer online learning. The 1 year that I lived on a college campus and experienced that, it was probably one of the best years of my life, but there were certain things about it that I definitely don't miss being in an online program. I mean, I love the atmosphere, I love hanging out with friends and, that whole thing, but at the same time, in terms of class participation, I'm kind of shy. I'm not one to raise my hand, so I lost a lot of grade points on that. And something like that is a lot easier in an online setting, I've noticed. And it's not even that, it's the fact that that 1 year that I lived on campus, I had to quit my job. I didn't have a way of making money, and it was really hard to, especially if I had to go buy something, it was really hard because I didn't have the money. At least, being an online student, I can still go to work, I can make money, and then on the off time, I can still do my classwork and everything. I would say one of the hardest things, and I don't even know if this is just for online students, like I'm pretty sure a lot of campus students have the same issues, but I would say one of the hardest things is trying to balance everything in terms of family time and schoolwork and actual work and just trying to find enough hours in the day to do it all, and a lot of time it just doesn't happen. And it's one of those things where it's kind of draining. It's kind of it's emotionally and physically draining to just not have time to do it all. I would say the area that suffers the most in terms of trying to balance everything, I mean, family and friends, that whole area of my life takes a huge hit. I mean, basically with schoolwork, it has to get done. It's a deadline. It has to get done on this day at this time. With work, if I don't go to work, I lose my job. So a lot of the cuts are spending time with my family, spending time with my friends, and it's very emotionally draining, especially when you're running around working so hard on these other things and you don't really get to stop and relax sometimes. I mean, I get to hang out with my friends maybe once a month, maybe, sometimes it'll be every 2 months. It just depends on what's going on. And, sometimes I've actually found myself procrastinating on assignments and saying, just completely blowing everything else off and be like, you know what, I need to spend time with my friends. And sometimes, it's just one of those things where you kind of have to do it, or else you just kind of become a hermit. It's like sometimes I feel like I never leave my room. So it's like I kind of need to get out. I think every person needs a diversion. I mean, even if by some stretch of the imagination you're this person who has to struggle with all these different things in your life and you just do not get stressed out at all whatsoever, I still think that there should always be that one thing that's kind of separate from everything else. For me, I like to read, I like to listen to music. Sometimes I'll even just sit down and I'll watch a few episodes of a TV show that I really like. And sometimes it'll actually prove to be helpful. When you're ingesting all these different types of media, you can see things playing out in your head differently if you're writing something. And sometimes it just kind of helps to clear your head. Once you step away from something, you can clear your mind a bit, and it sometimes makes the process go a lot smoother. So that's why it's kind of very. The amount of study time that I put in each day, it kind of depends. It depends on the class that I'm in, how much classwork there's actually involved, and it also depends kind of on my work schedule. I mean, some classes they'll have like 3 assignments due in a week, and then other classes will only have one main assignment due. And normally I find that in the beginning of the week, I'm a lot more likely to spend, 1 or 2 hours on my reading for that week. And then later on in the week, that's when I'll really start to get down to putting together the actual activities and assignments. It also depends on my work schedule. Sometimes if I don't get out of work until 9:30, it's a lot less likely that I'll be able to put in that extra time. With such a hectic schedule in terms of work and school and trying to find time to hang out with my family or even just relax without feeling guilty, it's really hard to determine how much sleep I need to get. I've been able to function on as little as 4 hours of sleep. I've pulled all nighters before. I mean, the most that I've gotten, I think, is like, well, 9 hours, but I think I was sick that day. It's really funny because whenever I'm lucky enough to get more than 6 hours of sleep, it's almost like it's too much sleep and then I'm tired throughout the entire day. But I think a good average is about 5 hours is a good amount for me to work on. Oh man, I love this question. Um, Actually, surprisingly enough, I don't drink that much coffee. I probably drink one, maybe 2 cups a week. I'm very fortunate in the fact that a lot of times when I have to go to work, I work in the late afternoon, in the evening, so I don't always have to get up super early for work. But usually once or twice a week, I'll have to get up at like 5:30, 6 o'clock to go to work, and that's when I have to get coffee. So it's only like once or twice a week. Time management is one of those things that I always kind of find myself working on. I will say that I've gotten a lot better since I started this program last year, but sometimes I have those days where it's just like, I really don't feel like doing this today, and I push it off, and I will be the first to admit that I'm kind of a procrastinator. And somehow I always seem to get everything in. But at the same time, it's just, trying to balance everything. It's difficult. I mean, my weakest point would probably be, when I come home from work and it's like 9:30 at night and all I want to do is eat dinner and go to bed. That's pretty much it. But, I still have all these other things I have to work on before I can go to sleep. And it's that thing that kind of makes it easier to push things off another day. Like, oh, hey, I need to get some sleep. So it's one of those things that I'm continuously working on, but it's still getting better. I don't actually have a separate designated space to do my schoolwork. 9 times out of 10, everything is done in my room, whether it's shooting, lighting, assignments, writing, anything. It's just all done in this one room. Occasionally, I'll go downstairs and I'll be in the kitchen writing some homework, or I will set up my lights in my mom's office because it's one of the biggest rooms in the house. But most of the time, I'm just kind of in my bedroom. I wish I had a separate space though. I think I would have a lot less distractions if I did that. Because, as with many people, I'm easily distracted. I think the biggest thing I'm looking forward to after my degree is just getting out there and getting the experience and just being able to, throw my own projects together and just, getting that experience that I'm working for. I mean, I don't even know particularly what I want to do yet. I don't know if I would much rather do lighting setups or work on writing scripts or anything like that. I think it would be a good idea to just get some experience in a few different places just to see where I'm at. And I can't wait to get out there and just kind of tread the water, so to speak. Personally, one of my biggest inspirations is probably my brother. For a long time, he kind of struggled to get things together, and a few years ago, he kind of, realized the dream that he had, and he started to pursue it. And ever since then, everything's kind of been falling into place. And when I first realized that my former degree wasn't really something I wanted to do anymore, and I had this idea of going back to school for digital cinematography, my brother was probably the first person I told, and he was the one who told me, just do it. Don't let people tell you that you can't do it. Don't let people judge you for changing what you're doing, and just keep going with what you want to do. And he kept telling me that, this is, if this makes you happy, this is what you have to do. And it's just something that I always kind of hold on to, especially now that there's this continued struggle where I don't get to hang out with people anymore. I don't get to see my brother that much anymore. And it's one of those things where I can always hear him and I can hear my mom and everybody in my head telling me, just keep going because it'll be worth it. I actually have quite a few things I consider my influences. Mostly ingesting crime drama since I was 13. I've always sort of had an attraction to that particular genre. And I like other things, obviously, sci-fi and some comedy, and I've tried writing all three, and I've noticed that comedy is just no. I'm not funny at all. And um I've noticed that with crime drama I have a lot more ideas and it can flow a lot better when I'm trying to write it. And it's kind of ironic because the saying is always write about what you know, and I've just ingested so much of it, and I even studied criminal justice at one point, and it's just it seems to come kind of natural at this point. So I always consider, those first crime dramas that I just became obsessed with to be my biggest influences. Um, I also consider some of the amateur filmmakers on YouTube to be some of my influences as well. Brittany Taylor and Joe Nation are two of my favorites. They're polar opposites sometimes, but they're just completely awesome at what they do. And it's watching them that really sort of got me to realize that, hey, I could do this too. They're by themselves most of the time. They do all their own setups, their own editing, and I figure if they can do it, why can't I? So it's one of those things that just a lot of things sort of contributed as my influences. It's kind of ironic given that I'm all about writing crime dramas, but if I could work with any director, I would really love to work with Joss Whedon at least once in my life. I mean, aside from the fact that I'm completely obsessed with crime drama, I'm also a complete nerd. And I've been a big fan of Joss Whedon for about the last 10 years. And between his work style and his writing and just everything that I've ever seen from him, he just seems like such a cool guy to work with. And I just think it would be such a great experience. Having to pick a favorite actor to want to work with is probably one of the hardest questions ever. I mean, there are just so many. There's a huge, long list of people that I would love to work with. Um, Top of the list, probably Nathan Fillion and David Tennant. Those are probably two of the biggest actors that I would love to meet them. I'd love to work with them. In terms of actresses, I would say Sandra Bullock. She's probably my favorite actress of all time. Very close second, Drew Barrymore. I mean, to work with either one of them that would probably just make my life. Like if I got to work with them for a day, I would probably die happy. Picking a current TV show that I would love to work on is probably as hard as picking an actor that I would like to work with. I mean, there's just so many out there that are just completely amazing. I would say first pick would probably be Rizzoli and Isles. I've always loved the dynamic of the show. It's got the crime drama that I absolutely love, and then it also has a lot of added character depth as well that a lot of crime dramas don't necessarily have. And it's something that I think is really unique in terms of the writing and just the setup of the show. I mean, the chance to work on that show would probably be a big highlight for me. I think one of the biggest pieces of advice that I can offer is to just take care of yourself. I mean, when you're trying to balance everything on a day-to-day basis like we are, it's really, really easy to lose sight of your own physical and emotional health. And it's one of those things that you can't really afford to lose track of. I mean, I've learned the hard way a couple of times. I mean, I'll wake up in the morning and I'll be working on homework until I have to go to work in the afternoon. And then I'll come home from work at 9:30 and realize, hey, I haven't eaten anything today. And if you do that long enough, back to back, your body will start to hate you for it. And it's one of those things where you have to keep an eye on yourself. I mean, obviously it's very important to get things done by deadline, but it's also very important to make sure that you take care of yourself, even emotionally. I mean, if you haven't been able to hang out with your friends in 2 months because you've had so much work to do, you need to take a couple hours, push back your assignment for a couple hours, and just get together with somebody, talk about things. And it'll be so much easier to focus once you've had that little bit of a break. Even if it's just taking time to take 2 hours to read a couple chapters of a book. Getting outside of it will definitely open up your mind creatively. I know with me, if I take the time to read or something, it'll definitely help creatively. I'll think about things differently, because if you stare at a problem for 20 minutes trying to solve it, step away from it, come back, and you'll see it differently. And again, I just can't stress enough to just take care of yourself, because if you burn out, all this work you're doing, it's going to be for nothing. But if you keep going at it and you make sure that you keep yourself in check, you keep your health in check, and you find a balance between everything going on in your life and all your responsibilities, it'll definitely be worth it in the end. It'll be so worth it to finally get out there and finally get that job that you've always wanted. And all of the struggle that you're going through right now, it's going to be totally, totally worth it.